My project title is London to Brighton, and my research question is, by walking the length of the London to Brighton railway line, how can I use the practice of critical cartography to map the significance of this crucial railway corridor and the themes and connections it fosters between these two important UK cities and their inhabitants? As a graphic designer and city dweller with a passion for urbanism, transit and community, I asked myself, how can I respond to this current moment? We are over 18 months into a global pandemic where our uses, expectations and understandings of public space and public transport have been shifted onto a different and at times traumatic new timeline. I am firmly of the belief that the continued growth and widespread use of the UK's railway network is a crucial tool in the fight against climate change, and the network must be protected at all costs. As a designer, I cannot enact or imagine policy change or technical alterations, but I can create work which uplifts and highlights the network's importance, and could hopefully act as an inspiration and reminder of the railway's crucial place embedded in the past, present and future of our society. As I strive to explore critical and participatory methodologies in my own design practice, I'm excited by the potential of cartography and visual documentation as mediums for telling human-led, community-centred stories about space and place at the intersection of the UK's railway network through our communities. I am attempting to conduct an exploration of one of the UK's most vital and busy railway corridors, London to Brighton, as it and its users feel their way forwards in our post-pandemic reality. I want to create a rich, multifaceted image of this route and its surrounding areas in this current moment, a document which serves as both a snapshot in time and a potential guide and inspiration for what could come next. Walking, conversation, cartography, criticality and crucially design practice have so far proved exciting and inspiring methods via which to explore this area at this specific moment in time. Now on to my practical work over the summer. In the early part of the summer, I commenced with my 12 walks along sections of the London to Brighton line, each walk accompanied by a different practitioner whose work and life has connections to the route. My initial concept for the project had been to explore 12 different themes, one with each guest, and create 12 individual outcomes to reflect these conversations and explorations of each section of the route. I had imagined these outcomes taking diversity of forms, encompassing sound art, games design, infographics, book arts, and more. As I completed each walk, I gathered detailed photographic evidence, sound recordings, and notes from conversations which occurred en route. At the end of each walk, I wrote 12 mini-essays, each exploring different facets of our discussions and the things we saw as we walked. I also attempted to plan what my outcome would be for each section. For example, the first walk was to be a collaborative textile piece with the artist I walked with, exploring both of our experiences of entering and leaving the City of London as outsiders. Another was to be a small book documenting the history of power sources in relation to our railways, inspired by the conversations I had with Alice Bell, who works for climate change charity Possible. Another was to be an interactive game about the experience of commuting, created in collaboration with games designer and longtime commuter Alex Silito. At the halfway point of my walks, I started to realise that this plan of creating 12 different outcomes was not viable. This was for several reasons. Firstly, the outcomes were too diverse, and the final pieces were in danger of feeling like 12 different projects rather than one cohesive whole. Secondly, I was being too ambitious in terms of time and scale. Creating these pieces to the standard I would want was unlikely to be viable. So I went back to the drawing board and started considering my passions and skills and how these could link into relevant and appropriate formats with which to try and tackle the themes I was exploring. One thing I had quickly realised during the walks was that my idea of addressing one theme per walk was fundamentally flawed. Conversation and ideas don't work that way. It's all well and good to say, on walk 5 we'll talk about commuting, but inevitably the conversations I had with every guest ended up straying and cross-pollinating and inspiring one another. I decided to stick with my 12 walks, 12 themes model, but recognised that each walk was to be multifaceted. How could I reflect this? After some thought and very helpful conversation on walk 6 with Sarah Cole, I landed on the idea of train tickets. These little ephemeral artefacts, these gateways to travel, these transient scraps of paper. How can I take this compact format and use it in a way which allows me to unfold the diversity of experience and ideas shared en route? I also reflected on my history of zine making and visual diaries in my personal practice, and as a result of these conversations, my answer ended up being many tickets. 12 per walk, to be precise, exploring whichever of my 12 themes had come up during our conversations that day. My original mini-essays and photographic documentation proved extremely helpful as I developed my concepts for these tickets. This slide shows a snapshot of my working spreadsheet, noting my plans and ideas for each individual ticket. I was thinking about production from the start. I've long been a fan of Risoprint and was keen to utilise this in my final outcome. both due to my experience with it and because its bold colours felt like a potential tool to help visually divide my outcomes by theme. I proceeded to work hard for the rest of the summer creating these final 144 tickets, exploring as many ideas, formats and styles as possible, all while remaining true to my central themes and the journey of the railway line, and all crucially printable in a single colour. I've just got a couple outstanding still, but almost all of them are now done. Here's an example of one walk's tickets. Each of my 12 themes is assigned a colour, and as you can see on this walk there are forest green, pink, blue, red, black and purple tickets, exploring the themes of leisure, entering and leaving the city as an outsider, in-between places, map-making, soundscapes and queer experiences. At this stage I started discussing my outcome with the print technicians at LCC. I'd been having a lot of issues with the reproduction of images in RISO during my test runs, and while they were able to help me understand this issue, for other reasons which were a bit too fiddly to go into here, it became apparent that I would not actually be able to realise my project as imagined using the RISO facilities available to me. I considered a number of other production options, including screen print and litho, but it has become apparent that the best approach for producing my final outcome in the time I have will be to digitally print the tickets. It's a shame that the single colour approach is no longer as tied to process as I had hoped, but it still serves a strong function in the legibility of the final outcome, so I'm happy with my choices in that respect. So now, with the tickets themselves nearly ready to go into production, I'm in the process of figuring out how they are contained or displayed as a final outcome. While in an exhibition context I would look to display them in a grid on the wall, they're certainly best viewed held in hands, as they are all double-sided and many fold out into larger pieces or mini-zines. Could they be contained in little train ticket wallets, one per walk? Could I create some kind of bespoke box solution in which to store them for easy exploration and browsing? This is what I'm currently trying to figure out. As well as the physical tickets, I'm also in the process of creating a website to display the project, which offers powerful tools for filtering by theme, enabling people to explore the project in a different way again. I also have various loose ends to tie up around interactivity of several tickets, and plan to write a short piece to accompany each of the 12 themes, in the creation of a sort of key to accompany the final outcomes, exploring why they are coloured as they are and what the themes are about. So this is where I'm at now, and I'm really excited to realise this body of work to its fullest potential in the next few weeks. Thank you so much for listening.